Welcome to Unholy Inquiry, where each tale leads you deeper into a labyrinth of mystery waiting to be uncovered. This time, join us as we delve into A Killer Was on Board. Poirot had to find them fast, a fan-crafted story that pays homage to the genius and sophistication of Agatha Christie's iconic detective, Hercule Poirot. We are thrilled to have you with us on this captivating journey. Share your thoughts, let us know where you're tuning in from, and if you spot any details we missed, your feedback is invaluable. Together, let's continue to shape even more thrilling enigmas. Chapter 1. The enigmatic guest emerges. The sound of a clock striking midnight echoed through the desolate mansion, reverberating through the empty corridors like the foreboding pulse of a heart ready to implode. In the flickering shadows cast by a lone candle, a woman's anguished scream pierced the silence, its resonance crawling beneath the skin of those who still dared to breathe within the aging walls. Little did they know, what emerged from the depths of the night would leave them forever changed, a figure cloaked in the mystery of the past, carrying secrets that could fracture the very essence of their lives. Amidst the chaos, Hercule Poirot entered the lavish drawing room, where the oppressive atmosphere clung to him like a heavy fog. The time was past for pleasantries. He assessed the situation with an eye trained in detection and reason. Ah, but the human heart, he mused silently. It hides many things, mon ami. A man in his 50s, with thinning hair, stood beside a spectral beauty, her pale face streaked with terror. The tension in the room felt as palpable as the storm raging outside, rain lashing against the windows, sending cascades of water trickling down, mirrored only by the trepidation in the eyes of the guests. Poirot fixed his gaze upon the first suspect, Dr. Edward Thornfield, the household physician, who appeared pallid and unnerved. Clenching his jaw, he fiddled with his bow tie as if it were a noose tightening around his very soul. "Tell me, Doctor," Poirot began, his voice calm and unyielding. "What was it you were doing during the moments before the scream?" Thornfield hesitated, his brow gleaming with sweat, each second an eternity as his lips parted to stutter a response before settling into a stony silence. Poirot's mind whirred with curiosity. Was the doctor merely a victim of circumstance, or did he harbor a darker penchant beneath his composed exterior? Beside the doctor stood Lady Eleanor, a captivating beauty bound to her mansion, yet imprisoned by secrets. Her alluring gaze darted nervously from her husband to Poirot, the remnants of her shattered world evident in her wide eyes. She clutched a delicate handkerchief, which served as a small anchor amidst the storm of emotion swirling around her. There was sorrow, undoubtedly, but also something that twisted at the corners of her mouth, a hint of something sinister that questioned her loyalty to her husband, Lord Richard, who loomed nearby, anger creeping into the contours of his fine features. A calculating man with connections that thrived in shadows. It was clear Lord Richard felt acutely the pressure of the moment, and the eyes fixed upon him all the while. "My wife is prone to fits of fancy," he spat sharply, entwining his fingers into a steeple, agitation churning in his gut as if it were venom from a rattlesnake. Poirot observed them closely, noting the small tremors of doubt that spurred their silence, examining how the thunder outside seemed to mirror the brewing storm between them. Yet within this triangular tableau stood the formidable servant, Ms. Abigail Drew, a woman with an elegant demeanor that belied her biting wit. She dressed impeccably, her tailored maid's uniform pristine against the chaotic backdrop of the night. Her demeanor commanded respect, but the way her cerulean eyes darted suspiciously communicated a fierce intelligence, veiled under layers of humility. Why was she listed among the elite in the household when disdain dripped from her every word? As Poirot began to piece the threads together, he noticed subtle clues, a splatter of mud near the fireplace from an unwelcome visitor's shoes, and the scent of jasmine, a floral note, both haunting and beautiful, that lingered, enveloping Lady Eleanor like a ghost from her past. Engaged now with the wickedness Ashford Hall drew into its fold, Poirot questioned each character, weaving through layers of lies, the atmosphere thickening with intrigue, a striking contrast to the tempest raging outside. The maid's voice betrayed a sliver of tension, though she feigned confidence. "The storm brought an unexpected guest," she remarked, her tone punctuated with a hint of sarcasm. "Shall I prepare accommodations for the traveling stranger, or shall we cast him into the storm?" A cryptic implication lay beneath her quip, tugging at Poirot's mind. It felt like a thread, tenuous and essential to unraveling the truth. Days unfolded, each moment heavy with the sense of something that lurked just beneath the surface. Poirot summoned a myriad of potential explanations, the clues morphing and melding with each passing hour. Hours stretched into days, deception cloaked the answers, and a chilling jolt of revelation coursed through him as he noted how mere moments breed ignorance and fear. The entire household breathed a rhythm steeped in guilt as it twisted, together under an unyielding narrative that screamed for resolution. Yet the final jolt of clarity came unexpectedly, an epiphany ignited amidst their spiraling chaos. Lady Eleanor revealed a photograph, a stanza from her life unmentioned, yet lurking quietly in the darkness. "My past haunts me," she whispered, and each word was laced with grief that echoed like thunder through the walls. "You see, Poirot, sometimes the guests we welcome into our lives are the very shadows we hope to escape." The truth revealed itself, not in the cacophony of voices, but in the resigned silence that embraced the room with a dark intimacy. Poirot, drawing from each narrative woven, pieced together the tapestry, the seemingly minor details blossoming into a full-blown portrait of betrayal. As he stood surrounded by the trembling souls of those who would withhold the truth of their lives, he couldn't help but feel the weight of humanity's flaws pressing down upon him. In that moment, clarity emerged amid the shadows, declaring to him the true nature of the monster that hid within every gentle facade. In the dark chambers of mystery, where light dares not tread, Poirot would unravel the final thread that fused the heart of the enigma into a profound conclusion. As he raised his eyes, steady and resolved, he uttered, "Ah, mes amis, one might ponder, how far must one go before confronting the demons of one's past? Tonight's revelation shall echo far beyond these walls." With each passing hour, the truth bore down upon them, ending within the folds of darkness, and Poirot thus knew this was only the beginning. The clock inched closer to its toll, and another whisper of chaos beckoned on the cusp of dawn. Chapter 2. Whispers in the Shadows. A scream erupted from the depths of shadows, shattering the stillness like glass, and in its echo lay a promise of anguish. As the mist curled ominously around the aging mansion, Hercule Poirot stood at the threshold of despair, breathing in the electric air pregnant with dread. His keen eyes swept the room, honing in on the fine features of fractured souls as they huddled together beneath the oppressive weight of secrets, each one a whispering spectre clawing at the fragile fabric of their composure. It was the 7th night since Lady Eleanor had unburdened her soul to him, revealing her past, her insecurities and fears echoing in his mind like a haunting melody as he navigated through a tunnel of grim uncertainty. Earlier that evening, the once splendid drawing room had served as both sanctuary and prison to its inhabitants, but now it transformed into a tableau soaked in tension, illuminated solely by flickering candles that danced in the wind, casting an eternal twilight over the faces of the guilty. Beneath the surface of their pleasantries lay a sinister undercurrent. Each heartbeat resonated with the threat of further violence, of revelations lurking within the darkness. Within the very heart of this turmoil was a shocking sight. The lifeless body of Lord Richard Ashford sprawled across the plush rug, a scarlet stain blossoming from his chest, detailing the agony of a life cut swiftly short. Poirot took a moment to absorb the chaos, enveloping the group, assessing the scene with a calculated detachment. He noted the unease etched into the faces of the remaining guests. Lady Eleanor, a pallor seeping into her features. Dr. Edward Thornfield, his hands trembling as they rose to his mouth, and Miss Abigail Drew, whose composure faltered momentarily before dissipating like the smoke from a snuffed candle. "Ladies and gentlemen," Poirot began, his voice steady, slicing through the tension like a knife through satin, "one of you resides not only in this house, but in the realm of shadows. We are no longer simply witnesses to the unfolding tragedy. We have crossed the threshold into culpability." Each word resonated sharply, striking inspiration and terror into those present. Poirot's gaze flickered back to Lady Eleanor, her beauty now betrayed by a darkness that swirled around her. "You tremble, madame. Might I inquire what your husband discovered just before his untimely end? A secret, perhaps, that bound you both in a silent agreement of silence?" The accusation landed heavily, yet her response came veiled in sorrow and indignation. "He was a man trapped within his own ambitions," she replied, words quivering like leaves caught in an autumn breeze. "But I knew nothing of his dealings, of the debts that plagued our household." The depth of her words radiated authenticity, yet beneath that earnestness lay a shadow, a deceit wrapped tightly in the fabric of her grief. Poirot shifted his attention to Dr. Thornfield, who now clutched a bourbon glass like a lifeline, his pallor augmented by shock. "What of you, Doctor? Your ties to the Ashford family run deep, and yet you possess knowledge shrouded in mystery." The physician's lips pressed tightly together as though he were wrestling with the very nature of truth itself, his mind a storm, ruminating on a half-veiled betrayal. "My role was merely to heal," he stammered, his eyes darting nervously from Poirot to Lady Eleanor. "I bore witness to their quarrels. Lord Richard was insistent on secrecy, on appearances." But Poirot's instincts were piqued, sensing the weight of unconfessed truths draped around the man like a fog. "Your loyalty to the dead man does not absolve you of guilt, Doctor." Thornfield Poirot's voice sharpened, desperate to cut through the doctor's facade. The man's brow glistened as he grappled for a response, only to remain ensnared in the web of his own fears, torn between loyalty and betrayal. As Poirot turned, next to Miss Abigail Drew, he could almost feel the sparks flying. Her cool demeanor served as armor against the cruelty of their world. Yet there was that sharp glint in her cerulean eyes that suggested deeper currents at play. "Ah, but my lady, you are no mere servant," he remarked, allowing a trace of irony to escape his lips. "What shadows do you harbor?" "I serve to protect, not to harm," she insisted, though the conviction in her voice faltered. There was something she concealed. Not only her intelligence masked beneath the guise of humility, but also a fierce pride stemming from a loyalty twisted by clashing ambitions. Days passed, yet the echoes of the gruesome murder persisted like spectral fingerprints on every surface of Ashford Hall. Poirot navigated the labyrinth of lies woven into the lives entangled in this morning. Coincidences became rampant specters, taunting him with their inscrutable connections. The late Lord Richard's business dealings, suddenly under scrutiny, implicating a rogue investor, vanished into the ether, drifting like smoke from an extinguished flame. Misleads veered like treacherous currents, sending Poirot's mind spiraling, but as astute as he was, he held something deeper, a hunch of betrayal that laid beneath the fractured heart of this family. It was not until a fateful night, under the watchful gaze of laden clouds, that Poirot found himself confronted by the lurking revelation. Lady Eleanor, once teetering on the brink of hysteria, now stood before him with a trembling letter in hand, an affront to the careful web of lies they had all crafted. "He was going to destroy everything I cherished," she confessed through a veil of desperate anguish. "He knew about my past, the hidden truth I buried so long ago." Poirot leaned closer, heart racing, as she revealed with trembling hands a name. The name of a long-forgotten suitor who had haunted her memories and could unravel her present, who might have driven Lord Richard to madness. Suddenly, it struck him like a lightning bolt. The photograph she had once shown him, a remembrance of a time cloaked in shadows, played a pivotal role in unlocking not only the crime at hand, but the anguish emanating from them all. Then came the twist, the dagger thrust into the hearts of those gathered. Dr. Thornfield, who had claimed innocence, while his past lingered thickly like the scent of jasmine in the air, who had sought to protect the very reputation he sought to uphold. All would learn that pride was a double-edged sword. Lady Eleanor's revelation had painted a target on the man's back, exposing both Lord Richard's demands and Dr. Thornfield's silence as if laid bare before them. In a swift and merciless crescendo, Poirot pieced together the tapestry of deceit, revealing that it was not merely the reliance on lies, but their entanglement that led to Lord Richard's demise. It was Lady Eleanor, racked with turmoil, who plotted revenge against a man obsessed with control, convinced that he could boast of unyielding power while allowing shadows to eclipse the truth. The climactic resolution unraveled in whispers, the haunted remnants of human fallibility culminating in Poirot's firm declaration. In this house of deception, one must remain vigilant, for secrets fester beneath the surface until they demand their due. Ah, mes amis, when the heart proclaims its desires, one must tread lightly, for at the core of humanity's darkness lies an unwillingness to erase shadows that refuse to die. As shock waves rippled through the guests' pallid faces, enveloped in a thick silence fraught with regret, Poirot stood firm, the harbinger of truth, the arbiter of their hidden realities. The truth had emerged, painful and inescapable, casting the light of revelation against a backdrop of eternal shadow, revealing that beneath the delicate facades, the whispers of darkness spoke far louder than any lie could mask. Chapter 3. A Scream in the Night. The echo of a piercing scream shattered the tranquil night, piercing through the heavy curtain of darkness that shrouded Ashford Hall. Outside, the tempest raged, wind howling like a wounded beast, as if nature itself mourned the spectre of violence that hung in the air. Poirot, ever attuned to the subtleties of human emotion and the undercurrents of dread, felt the tremor of fear envelop the household like an unwelcome cloak. Instinctively, he rose from his seat in the dimly lit library, where flickering candlelight danced across volumes of dusty tomes, illuminating the timeless struggles of humanity contained within their pages. The hour was late, a time when most sought refuge in slumber. Yet here, among this fractured family, the spectre of death loomed large. With deliberate steps, Poirot crossed the threshold into the grand hallway, where shadows shifted like whispers, and the air trembled with unvoiced dread. It was there that he found her, Lady Eleanor, her delicate frame trembling, the very embodiment of shock, staring toward the staircase as if it had conjured the wails that still echoed through the hall. "Mon ami, what has transpired?" he questioned, his voice steady, though the urgency of the moment surged beneath it like a coiled spring. She did not respond immediately, her eyes wide and glistening with tears, reflecting the wavering light from the candles, casting elongated shadows across the marbled floor. "It is Abigail," she finally uttered, the name escaping her lips like a frightened bird. I found her, alone." Gripping the banister, Poirot moved swiftly toward the staircase, each step resonating with a weighty foreboding that pressed upon him like the tempest outside. At the top, beyond an ornate door that groaned in dismay as he pushed it open, he beheld the scene that laid before him, a tableau of horror. Miss Abigail Drew lay crumpled on the floor, a scattered heap of silk and bone, the stillness of her body punctuated by the blood pooling around her, a crimson crown crowning a once elegant presence. The candlelight flickered, casting grotesque shadows that danced along the walls, misaligning perception with reality. "Lady Eleanor," he called, his voice a calm oasis in the rising storm of chaos. "Do not succumb to the tide of despair. We must uncover the truth of this ghastly affair." Yet even as he spoke, the weight of dread coiled around him, a shadow that whispered to his deepest fears. What lay hidden in the hearts of those surrounding him? Each breath he took was heavy with the promise of revelation, yet also the threat of betrayal. As the consternation morphed into hysteria, the remaining guests were drawn to the scene, their faces pallid with shock. Dr. Edward Thornfield emerged from the gathering throng, his visage pale, eyes darting nervously, betraying a familiarity with death that was wholly unnerving. "What has happened?" he demanded, though it was a question that dripped with suspicion. "Abigail, she cannot be—" "Dead she is, mon ami," Poirot interjected, observing the way the doctor's hands trembled against the woodwork, his facade crumbling beneath the weight of the night's horror. And yet the question must be posed. Who had a motive to silence her? From the crowd, Lord Richard Ashford's brother, the brooding Charles Ashford, stepped forward. He had always nursed a simmering rivalry with Richard, a shadow of resentment etched upon his brow. "I would lay the blame at Eleanor's feet," he proclaimed, his voice straining to remain steady. "What secrets did Abigail hold that could lead to her demise? Do you not see? The woman was privy to things not meant for our ears." Poirot's gaze flickered between the assembled faces, searching for the strands of truth woven within the fabric of brimstone and betrayal. "Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami," he mused silently, piecing together fragmented truths. As the fleeting moments stretched into eternity, Poirot began his inquiry, approaching Charles with a steady gaze. "You, Monsieur Ashford, seemed troubled long before this night. Was it perhaps the dwindling attention of your brother that brought forth resentment?" For a brief instant, a flash of anger ignited in Charles's eyes, only to flicker out as regret clouded his features. "I loved my brother, but he was blind to those among us who plotted against him," he seethed, the accusation weighted and laden with implications. Poirot noted the tremor in his voice. Vexation or guilt? He could not yet tell. Next, he turned to the fragile form of Lady Eleanor, whose hands now twisted the lace of her gown. "How deep were your associations with Miss Drew, madam? And what bond breathed life into a struggle that might have led to her parting?" "I shared no such bond," she protested vehemently, but Poirot detected the slight tremor beneath her words, the tautness of her jaw. "Abigail was merely a servant. Her life was removed from our world. Yet you seemed particularly stricken by her death," he remarked, a slight upward shift of his brows signaling unvoiced thoughts. "What was the nature of your relationship, I wonder? An entanglement of secrets, longing, or perhaps resentment?" As each suspect grappled with their truths, Poirot sensed a sinister force threading through their tales, secrets cloaked in whispers, hiding like shadows in the night. There, amid their entangled fates, pieces began to lock together, illuminating possibilities that should have remained veiled. Days of probing passed like shadows in the ever-waning light, each revelation unleashing further uncertainty. And what of Dr. Thornfield, with his quiet strength? His guilt hovered like a spectre in the background, yet Poirot discerned an undercurrent of vulnerability, a fierce protectiveness interlaced with obligation. Just as Lady Eleanor had become bound to her past, so too did the doctor carry burdens of his own, shadows from which he wished to escape. Poirot pressed further, skilled in the art of inquiry, his gaze unwavering. Then, as the final piece clicked into place, a glimmer of understanding flickered in Poirot's mind, igniting the dim recesses of revelation. He reeled slightly, his brow furrowing. The connections drew taut, fraying the edges of suspicion he had so carefully pieced together. "Ah, mes amis, you must forgive me," he declared, turning to face them all, blissfully unaware of the collective gasp that swept through the assembly at his pronouncement. "It seems I have stumbled upon a truth, a deception, if you will, that might just take us further beyond the shadows than any of us anticipated." With measured words that sliced through the tension, Poirot revealed the news that would shatter their fragile sanctuary. Abigail had dabbled in more than mere household tasks. She threaded herself into the intricate tapestry of the Ashford family's inner workings. Her connection to Lord Richard's buried secrets, the hidden accounts of deceit, investment in downfall, was the key chaining many of them together. A final betrayal flickered in the candlelight, dancing before their eyes like a cruel jest of fate. The revelation took form, igniting a spiral of realization. Abigail had been poised to expose secrets that threatened to devastate not only Lady Eleanor's carefully cultivated life, but the very foundation upon which all exclusive reputations were built. As the assembled souls grappled with their hidden realities, Poirot delivered his masterstroke with a furrowed brow and unyielding gaze. "It is indeed a delicate balance we hold, with threads that bind us tightly. To what depths shall we descend to protect our secrets? Look closely, for in our desire for absolution, we may find ourselves entwined in our own demise. With his closing words resonating in the silence, Poirot allowed the weight of truth to settle heavily upon their shoulders, each soul bound by revelations clanging against their hearts. In a world rife with shadows, the true monsters lay hidden beneath the veneer of civility. And in that dark hour, Poirot revealed the most crucial lesson of all. It is not merely the crimes of the heart that prove fatal, but the burdens we carry that bind us irrevocably to the weight of our own treachery. Chapter 4. The Hidden Clue. The old grandfather clock echoed a sinister chime, its voice merging with the distant rumble of the tempest that clawed at the fortress-like walls of Ashford Hall. A feeling of dread saturated the air, seeping beneath the skin of each guest huddled within the opulent library. In the flickering glow of candlelight, deep shadows danced cruelly upon their pale faces, accentuating the growing unease. It was then that Poirot noticed a simple thing, a seemingly innocuous object tucked beneath the edge of the ornate mantelpiece, a small silver locket, its polished surface dulled by the dust and grime of neglect. Yet, as with all things in this house of secrets, its presence hinted at so much more. In the aftermath of Miss Abigail Drew's tragic demise, the atmosphere grew thick with suspicion and accusation. The recent revelations from Poirot about Abigail's clandestine ties to the family had plunged the Ashford clan into chaos. Lady Eleanor, visibly shaken, sat, with her hands clenched upon her lap, her once elegant posture marred by uncertainty. The doctor, Edward Thornfield, seemed a silhouette of anguish, his gaze flitting nervously from one guest to another. Meanwhile, Charles Ashford, Lord Richard's shadowy brother, paced the expanse of the room, his movements angular and restless, mirroring the agitated thoughts trapped beneath his steely facade. "Mon ami, have you found something amidst the ruins of our shattered lives?" Poirot inquired, directing his keen, discerning gaze toward the locket, which seemed to pulse with an enigmatic life of its own. The air hung heavily, anticipation crackling like the branches of a tree in the storm, heightening the tension rippling among the gathered souls. "Nothing more than a trinket, Poirot," Charles sneered, interjecting bitterly, "an antique of little consequence." Yet Poirot sensed a tremor in Charles's voice, a subtle crack that betrayed the irritation born of deeper fears. "What if, Monsieur Ashford, it is more than that? What if it bore a secret, a hidden clue, linking one of us to the unfortunate Abigail?" Poirot smiled, his expression calm, though his heart beat faster, for instinctively he understood that the locket's existence was no mere coincidence. As the storm outside thrashed violently, a crack of lightning illuminated the room, exposing the concealed anguish hidden beneath the surface of order. Each guest appeared momentarily unsheltered in that stark, electric moment. Eyes wide with guilt, fear, and the depth of unspoken thoughts. Poirot could sense the undercurrents swirling around him as he investigated the locket further, carefully removing it from its resting place. "Ah," he breathed thoughtfully, paid no heed to the significance of this object, perhaps. He examined the clasp, feeling its coldness against his palm, contemplating the possibility it might hold photographs or messages. Returning to the others, he posed a question, as keenly aware of the weight their hesitation carried as he was of his purpose. "Pray tell, who among us might have had a reason to keep such a memento, perhaps one who shared more than mere conversation with Miss Drew?" Lady Eleanor shifted uncomfortably in her seat, her delicate frame crumpling further as she stammered, "How dare you insinuate Mon Dieu chéri, I do not insinuate, Poirot replied, his voice a calm caress, cutting through her protest. But rather unveil the truth. What was the nature of your acquaintance with Abigail? Was it but the plight of a servant or a confidant? Yet before she could respond, Dr. Thornfield interjected, his voice barely above a whisper, as if the air turned oppressive with the weight of his secrets. You are grasping at straws, Poirot. The locket means nothing. Poirot raised an eyebrow, the corners of his mouth lifting slightly. And yet, he countered softly, the heart often reveals itself in the smallest of gestures. As suspicion rippled through the assembled guests, Poirot pressed on, keenly aware of the shifting dynamics at play. Tell me, Doctor, was it your professional obligation to keep death at bay that made you so unyielding? Or might you, too, share an entangled history with Abigail? Murmurs have echoed of a spry ardor that once entwined you both. Poirot observed the subtleties that played across the doctor's expression, a fleeting stutter in his control, a tightening of hands that hinted at deep-set emotions. The doctor's lips pressed into a thin line, and his cheeks flushed. She was a friend. Nothing more. A fleeting association that bore no weight. Yet Poirot was not convinced. He sensed a tempest of affection, intertwined with trepidation, lurking just beneath Thornfield's surface. As the candlelight flickered, shadows flitting across the walls as if alive, Poirot turned his gaze back to Charles Ashford, who stood in a posture now resembling a waiting wolf, dangerous yet apprehensive. Someone should have found her earlier, Charles said sharply, his voice laced with an unsettling fervor. Perhaps the blame lies not with the dead, but with those who allowed her fate to fall to darkness. His indignation began to unveil a possible strategy, one that made Poirot's mind whirl again, entwined with the locket's presence. Before long, Poirot had crafted connections that twisted like the storm outside, the ferocity of adrenaline fueling his deduction. The stakes grew ever higher, and with each truth unearthed, the world within Ashford Hall unraveled further. Ah, but do not forget my Amos, Poirot began slowly, casting an ardent gaze towards them. Even the most innocent of objects can hold the heaviest of truths. For example, he took a calculated pause, letting the tensions swell dramatically. How many of you might covet the fortune Abigail bore, knowing she straddled the line between servant and harbinger of secrets? Charles trembled slightly, and Lady Eleanor's gasp broke the silence, like glass, shattering. Dr. Thornfield focused nervously on nothing, as if trying to escape reality altogether. Poirot could feel the heartbeat of their joint shame, whisper hollowness that mirrored deeper treachery. A collective fear of discovery hung unacknowledged in the room. By now, Poirot had enough shrouded threads woven to form a tapestry that ominously hinted at betrayal. And yet he sensed something darker still lurking within the fabric, the echo of lies that had circumnavigated this family. With an elegant flourish, he claimed their attention once more, eyes glinting like the flames that flickered in the candlelight. The final twist will not only unveil Abigail's murderer, but expose a betrayal tightly meshed within a web we have yet to untangle. It is very well that the heart knows whispers devour secrets, leaving one exposed to the haunting shadows of their own making. Replacing the locket reassuringly upon the mantelpiece, Poirot turned away from his anxious audience. Let us examine what truths lie hidden in those corners that still throw shade across the past. As the storm raged on, the silence grew heavier in the room. Poirot knew all too well that in that heart of darkness, where betrayal lurked, answers were destined to resurface, echoing still long after the final reveal. For now, the night was merely a prelude to the enthralling enigmas yet to unfold. The hidden clue had been revealed. The time for enlightenment was nigh. Chapter 5. The Safety of Lies. Midnight's toll struck across the desolate halls of Ashford Hall, the echoes resonating like the distant wails of lost souls. Shadows twisted into grotesque forms, conspiring under the flickering candlelight that struggled to penetrate the oppressive gloom. It was during this disquieting hour that a scream, sharp and slicing through the heavy air, pierced the night, a harbinger of yet another darkness lurking within the Ashford family's web of secrets. Hercule Poirot, ever the embodiment of calm amidst chaos, emerged from the depths of his thoughts as he was jolted to attention by the terrified cry. He had taken refuge in the library, sifting through the remnants of their previous discussions, when the sound rattled him to his core. Within moments, the assembly of guests surged toward the source of the commotion, hearts pounding, senses heightened. Lady Eleanor, her pallor akin to that of a ghost, clutched her throat, trembling as if her very soul had been threatened. "It was him. He is dead," she gasped, her voice thick with dread. A cacophony of shock reverberated around them, yet it was the hurried whispering of Dr. Edward Thornfield that caught Poirot's practiced ear. How could this happen? We were all here, together. A nuance of panic tainted his words, an indication that perhaps he feared more than just the loss of life. Poirot's gaze flicked towards Charles Ashford, whose expression oscillated between anger and fear, eyes darting like a cornered animal. Caught unawares by the death within their ranks, each face presented its own terrifying scenario. Betrayal lurked with every trembling hand. Rushing into the study, Poirot's eyes fell upon the scene before him, chilling in its simplicity and horror. Lord Richard Ashford lay sprawled across his mahogany desk, a silver letter opener piercing his chest, glimmering dully in contrasts of blood and candlelight. The letter before him was a tattered page, its contents obscured by the pooling crimson. "Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami," Poirot mused quietly, stepping closer to examine the body. "And each of you carries burdens heavier than his gravestone," he added, turning his discerning gaze to the remaining guests. The tension hung thick in the air. Lady Eleanor, despite her evident shock, gazed mournfully upon Richard's lifeless body, their union weighed down by years of secrets and financial ruin. Rumors of their once thriving estate slipping through their fingers had haunted her more than the spectre of death that now loomed. Poirot turned his attention to Charles, who stood rigidly beside the door, sweat beading on his brow. "A brother's jealousy breeds many a dark intention, no?" he said, his tone well modulated. Charles's eyes flared, a mixture of indignation and fear tightening his lips. "Do not be absurd, Poirot. This tragedy is more than I can bear. Why would I wish harm upon my own brother?" But Poirot was unmoved, his mind sharp and analytical. "After all, Monsieur Ashford, the riches he squandered could have benefited you greatly, no? Such a sizable inheritance casts a long shadow upon the soul." The lack of an alibi turned Charles's demeanor tense, his pulse quickening with each calculated syllable Poirot offered. Standing in the periphery, Dr. Thornfield fidgeted, his hands wringing themselves under the pressure of scrutiny. "It was an accident, a tragic, unfortunate accident," he protested, stepping closer to his friends to reinforce his insistent denial. Yet the sweat slicking his brow suggested an internal conflict. Poirot observed the nuances of every twitch, the way the doctor seemingly craved a savior to distance him from the scene. Ah, but if it were merely an accident, why would one feel so compelled to whisper of unfortunate relations? Poirot interjected, sensing a titanic wave of reticence swell before him. Our dear doctor, are you privy to knowledge that would raise such unsettling ideas? Poirot, I implore you, Thornfield's voice cracked, revealing the shakiness beneath his cool facade. This is not the time for finger-pointing. None of us are implicated in this heinous act. After a tentative silence, aftershocks of dread washed over the group, and Poirot allowed the tension to escalate. Without missing a beat, he set his eyes on the letter foretold by its blood-stained truth. Time is of the essence, mes amis. The safety of lies no longer protects you. We uncover this truth now. As he reached for the letter opener with precision, the chamber buzzed with anticipation, fueled by fear and desperation. With its cold steel in one hand, Poirot lifted the letter, drawing the room's breath away in unison. The contents revealed intimate details, letters from a clandestine sender entangled in the Ashfords' scandalous underbelly. With these clues at hand, Poirot deciphered a trail of red herrings that had led them into chaos. Each suspect, the unwitting lady, the consuming brother, and the secretive doctor, had woven a labyrinth of deception, yet something did not align. Tension spun within the treacherous folds of fate, causing Poirot's thoughts to whirl in defeat. Fear not, ma chère, for even the most intricate of lies will tremble beneath the weight of revelation. A quiet reflection struck Poirot, a momentary grasp at realization, as the pieces connected in his mind like the whirring of clockwork machinery. He glanced back at his companions, the tension tangible, ready to strike and fracture. I believe we have been misled, he declared sharply. The word carried a resounding finality. The true murderer holds not merely a grudge against Richard, but a darker truth beneath the family facade, an unforgivable betrayal concealed amidst these walls. With a dramatic flourish, he began to unveil the tangled treachery. Under the guise of loyalty, Dr. Thornfield had forged deeper ties to Lord Richard's secrets than initially perceived, a connection that mingled with both love and disdain. You did not kill only for the inheritance, dear doctor, Poirot pressed on, but also for love, entwined with a heart that longed for resolution, with the very ghost haunting this household. The safety of lies would no longer bear fruit. The doctor crumpled, expelling the weight from his chest. I could not bear to hurt him, Poirot. He was everything I aspired to be, yet ever walking in his shadows. Thornfield faltered before the full horror of his confessions came crashing down upon them. With a haunting chill weaving through their bones, Poirot concluded his case with finality. You see, each of us wore a mask, florid in deceit. Yet as shadows gather, the truth shall rise, relentless in exposing the soul beneath. The room fell into a stifling silence, each ear ringing with the stark clarity of Poirot's words, cutting deeper than the blade used to end a life. The darkness remained, yet new light spilled into the cracks of fear, an uneasy realization, woven with the weight of revelations unspoken. And in that silence, Poirot's voice wrapped around them like a shroud. It is we who become prisoners of our own secrets. They once promised safety, yet only produced despair. The true weight of betrayal lay heavy on Ashford Hall as the night unfolded into an uncertain dawn, a memory of what once was, now irrevocably changed. Chapter 6. A Desperate Gamble. The wind howled outside like a banshee lamenting loss, its fingers clawing at the chilled windows of Ashford Hall, where shadows twisted and turned in a macabre dance under flickering candlelight. Deep within the heart of this ancestral home, the atmosphere thickened with unsaid words and burdened breaths. It was a desolate chamber where time appeared to hold its breath, waiting for a revelation that seemed both inevitable and dreadful. As the echo of thunder rattled the window panes, an ominous sense of finality enveloped the room, punctuated by the wretched cries of a woman, a sound that could only foretell something dark. The evening had taken a predestined turn towards chaos, and Hercule Poirot, ever the beacon of composure, sensed the ripples of tension unfurling amongst those present. Lady Eleanor's porcelain visage had transformed into a canvas painted with horror and disbelief, while Charles Ashford wrestled with the storms of jealousy that now clashed violently with the raw truth of his brother's demise. Dr. Thornfield, once a steadfast confidant, had morphed into a shadow of his former self, haunted by secrets that gnawed at the edges of his sanity. The scene before Poirot reflected an iceberg, the true catastrophe hidden below, only the surface chaos visible to the untrained eye. Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami, Poirot murmured quietly, stepping further into the chilling tableau. The mystery expanded like an unwelcome fog, wrapping tightly around the guests as he observed their flustered demeanor and darting glances. In their midst lay an invisible string of desperation that bound each of them, tethered to unspeakable actions stirred by emotion. Conversing softly yet methodically, Poirot set his sights on Lady Eleanor first, an apparent victim of circumstance. Mon chéri, how deeply do you mourn for the man you married? Was it merely loyalty, or the echoes of despair that now kneel at your feet? Her delicate fingers trembled as she sank into the chair, a fragile silhouette against the imposing mahogany surroundings. I loved him. I thought I did. Yet with each passing year, secrets lurked in the corners of our union, breeding resentment, she confessed, voice trembling like the flickering flames. Poirot sensed a truth buried beneath her sorrow, an unyielding tension wrapped in veiled sentiments. Next, his keen eyes turned towards Charles, whose resentment was as palpable as the howling wind outside. The loss of a brother, one who squandered what was rightfully yours. You must grieve in another way, Poirot prodded. Charles's face contorted, feigning outrage, yet failing to mask the underlying betrayal. You dare imply, he began before stammering to a halt, realization dawning that Poirot's eyes had pierced through his facade. Beneath his anger lay the heavy cloak of ambition, interwoven with the thread of murderous intent, more potent an elixir than any familial bond. But then there was Dr. Thornfield, whose countenance betrayed the turmoil within, a man enamored yet embittered by his position, forever comparing his worth to that of Richard Ashford. None of this is right, Poirot. We must remember our own motivations, he insisted, but even his own voice faltered, revealing fissures that exposed an internal conflict. A mixture of jealousy and guilt flitted across the physician's features, making Poirot pause to regard him with renewed intensity. Once more, Poirot ventured into the fray of their tangled web. A broken clock in the corner ticked ominously, reminiscent of hands caught in an eternal countdown. He began crafting a narrative thick with falsehoods and veiled truths, where words transformed into daggers of intimidation. Drawing out subtle hints, he winded through the labyrinth of suspicion, noting every restless flicker of the eye and clenched fist, but always keen on discerning the ticking time bomb of secrets concealed. As Poirot ventured deeper into the investigation, the atmosphere grew increasingly heavy with shadows of deceit. Suspicion ebbed and flowed like waves crashing against the shore. A slip of paper crumpled on the floor caught his eye, forgotten by its owner, and it dawned on him that perhaps Dr. Thornfield had not merely been taking notes for his work. He retrieved the scrap, torn corners revealing a letter, stained with ink and eerily reduced to fragments of a darker conversation than medicine could ever touch. The words spoke of betrayal, alluding to a heart not content in shadows where guilt resides. Yet when Poirot raised his suspicions about the letter, Lady Eleanor's face turned a ghastly shade, a mask of innocence cracked as panic glared from her eyes. As the revelation unfolded painfully in her throat, she stammered, "How could you know? It meant nothing, just letters." Her voice wavered like a wind-taut sail on the brink of breaking. As the investigation climbed toward its zenith, Poirot was compelled to round the corner of revelation with the elegance of a practiced maestro directing a crescendo. "You see, mes amis, the true murderer dwells not merely among you, but within the very walls that cradle the refuse of both love and loss." At that moment, the dam of secrets burst forth. Lady Eleanor's love, entwined with treachery, reached for the timeless bonds that death had severed, catalyzing a desperate gamble, one that involved not the avarice of wealth, but a pursuit for a heart that had fled. But then, the first twist, the red herring, wove its own intricate dance. Poirot had assumed that Lady Eleanor's motive was intertwined with jealousy and fear, yet a moment of clarity ensnared him. What if these threads only masked a deeper, more sinister game? Had Dr. Thornfield tangled emotions and ambition into a web so thick he could not see within? As he confronted the doctor, the air grew electric, each silence riveting. In an explosive denouement, Poirot declared, but betrayal does not always express itself where one expects. You were not the unyielding heart of this betrayal. Your love, Doctor, held only the guise of devotion." The atmosphere ruptured as Charles cried out, revealing his intricate involvement in schemes beyond his own brother's death. Gambling debts, unfinished business that had burdened him under Richard's shadow, all leading back to a temple of charred dreams and actions born of desperation. At that moment, Poirot's voice, a vengeful, windswept lament, pierced the fabric of chaos. Your gamble was life itself, and now stands naked before you, stripped of pretense. The poison lay not in a dagger's thrust, but within the unforged bonds of family love turned awry. A heavy silence shuttered the room, as realization fell upon them like a relentless tide, consequences surfacing with every turbulent wave. The final twist, the heartbreaking truth that their games of greed had left the truth bereft of solace, echoed through the chambers of Ashford Hall. As the storm began to wane, casting a somber light upon the tragedy that had unfolded, Poirot turned away, his heart heavy with the weight of their shared secrets. Let this night serve as a grave reminder, humorless in its revelation. Upon the precipice of greed lies only the chilling ghost of betrayal. For it is from within ourselves that the dark twists of fate emerge, churning into stormy seas. And thus, the fabric of Ashford Hall, eternally stained with the blood of truth and deception, was left to ponder the echoes of choices made in desperate gambles, where love could just as swiftly morph into ruin, bereaving hearts amidst shadowed halls. Chapter 7. The Cryptic Letter. Dark clouds loomed over Ashford Hall as the wind howled through the swaying trees, creating an eerie symphony that resonated with the hidden despair inside. In the flickering candlelight of the grand drawing room, a single sheet of paper lay abandoned on a mahogany table, its jagged edges hinting at urgency and secrecy. It was at that moment, amidst the shadows, that Hercule Poirot would uncover the threads of betrayal woven tightly within the hearts of those who had once been bound by love and loyalty. The tension within the room was palpable, as if the very air was charged with unanswered questions. Lady Eleanor, her face a pale mask of distress, was seated on a chaise longue, her fingers twisted together in a manner that bespoke both anxiety and deep sorrow. I do not hold any knowledge of such letters," she stammered, her voice trembling as she attempted to distance herself from the paper, her eyes betraying an internal conflict that belied her words. Poirot, his sharp gaze fixed upon her, could sense the hidden currents swirling beneath her carefully constructed facade. For the heart, after all, concealed many things, mon ami. At the opposite end of the room, Charles Ashford paced like a trapped animal, the sharp lines around his mouth etching a story of pent-up frustration and misplaced ambition. "You speak of letters as if they contain the key to this nightmare, Poirot," he snapped, his tone biting yet anxious. "But do you not see? My brother is dead, and grief shrouds this house with a fog the likes of which none can pierce." His bravado might have been convincing to an untrained eye, yet Poirot sensed the tension underlying those spiteful words, an unease reflecting a guilt too weighty to remain comfortably hidden in the shadows. Dr. Thornfield, slumped against the corner, wore the unmistakable countenance of a man who had lost himself in a labyrinth of guilt and longing. "What good can come from unearthing old grievances?" he implored, his voice low and trembling. "We all bear the burden of things unsaid. Can we not learn to let the dead rest in peace?" But the flicker in his eyes betrayed a fear that echoed the chilling wind outside. He feared more than just the ghosts of his past. But Poirot knew better than to indulge in sentimentality when faced with such grotesque deception. He surveyed the room, piecing together their reactions like fragments of a complex puzzle, each response illuminating a part of their twisted motivations. Yet a sense of impending doom loomed. The letter held secrets that could unravel the very fabric of trust within these walls. As the candle flames danced like flickering spirits, Poirot delved deeper into the mystery, instinct guiding him to the cryptic letter abandoned on the table. The jagged edges and hastily scrawled words whispered of urgency and betrayal. He retrieved the letter, examining every detail with methodical precision. In his mind, he began to weave narratives, convoluted yet strikingly true. Who among them had conjured such desperation? Within moments, he had them gathered. "My friends," he began, his voice calm yet commanding, "I propose we turn our attentions towards the unaddressed letter I hold in hand. Its contents speak to us in the voice of one who felt cornered, a soul trapped within the confines of chaos." The air grew thick with tension as he held the paper aloft, watching the flickering shadows cast by the candlelight dance across their faces. Lady Eleanor paled, her sharp intake of breath nearly audible in the silence as she cast her eyes downward. "What do you intend to uncover, Poirot?" Your suspicions are unkind. Yet the tremor in her voice lent credence to the truth she dared not speak. What if the author of this letter is not merely a victim within this tale? Poirot countered smoothly, studying her reaction with keen scrutiny. What if, instead, it harbors the thoughts of one intent on destabilizing the very fabric of your lives? The motivations of those we thought innocent become murky. Enough of your antics. This is a game, Poirot, Charles retorted forcefully, his eyes narrowing with malevolence. You toy with our grief while pretending to hold the answers. This letter is but nonsense, populated with the ravings of a mind unhinged. Ah, but here lies the crux, mon ami. Those same ravings may expose mechanisms far more lethal than our grief. You resent your brother for more than his wealth, do you not? Poirot's gaze returned to Dr. Thornfield, whose shoulders tightened at the insinuation. The doctor's fingers drummed nervously against the surface of the table, a sign of internal turmoil. This is madness. My responsibility lies solely in healing, not in harboring treachery. Do not cast your aspersions lightly, Poirot. The storm outside raged, but the tempest within these four walls grew fiercer still. As Poirot pressed further, the atmosphere became thick with desperation, shadows stretching and yawning like the rift between revealed sins and hollow loyalties. He began asking questions, each one razor-sharp, designed to slice through the soft underbelly of their deceptions. Every pause between their answers was filled with unexpressed regrets and unresolved truths. I can see it in your eyes. Poirot spoke softly, yet with the weight of solemn truth. You, Charles, you played against Richard in more ways than mere sibling rivalry. You sought something beyond avarice, an escape from your own failings. The letter— What do you know of my failings? Charles shot back, his bravado faltering, allowing Poirot a glimpse of the fear beneath. Ah, but there it was, the shift in equilibrium, the flicker of guilt. Poirot had discerned a pattern woven through their betrayal. The letters of affection exchanged in secret, born of desperation. The cryptic letter was but one refrain in a larger, dissonant symphony. The climactic revelation struck near the dawn of clarity. Lady Eleanor clasped her trembling hands over her mouth, her eyes widening as the pieces fell into place within her mind. You do not mean, she gasped. The letter, it spoke of a plot to— And it is here, mes amis, Poirot interjected, his voice resolute and clear, that we find the true architect of this labyrinth of dreams gone awry. It lies not merely with jealous hearts, but with the very bonds that weave this tapestry of betrayal. In a moment of breathless tension, Poirot unveiled the startling truth. The author of this letter was not Lady Eleanor, nor was it Charles. This plot was crafted by none other than Dr. Thornfield himself. In a heart frayed by envy, you sought to sever the strings that connected you to Richard. Dr. Thornfield staggered back, the weight of Poirot's words plunging deep within him like a dagger. No, you cannot believe— Ah, and yet the truth unwinds, Poirot continued, unflinching. Your longing for what you could never possess, a shared love. It drove you to create the very chaos you sought to escape. Betrayal does not always wear the face we expect. As his words settled, a heavy silence draped itself over the room, ashes of truth engulfing them all. Each lost moment whispered sorrow, an elegy for relationships forever altered. In the still twilight, Poirot turned towards Ashford Hall's vast darkened corridor, the shadows creeping at their edges. the House of Secrets now a mausoleum for broken trust. "Remember this, my friends," he said, his voice slicing through the thick silence. "The strings we weave in envy often bind us in the most desolate of places, quite horrific indeed, when love turns to ruin." And with that, the storm outside began to wane, the echoes of betrayal hanging heavy in the air, whilst darkness descended upon the soul of Ashford Hall, a fitting resting place for the truth long concealed. Chapter 8. The Unexpected Confession. The heavy scent of damp earth and impending rain hung in the air, a prelude to the tempest that brewed above Ashford Hall. The truth, long concealed, pressed down upon the inhabitants like a smothering fog, insistent and chilling. Outside, a flash of lightning illuminated the corridor, casting a fleeting, sinister shadow, only to be followed by the ominous echo of thunder, a grim reminder that chaos was but a heartbeat away. Just then, within the sanctuary of the grand drawing room, a sudden wail shattered the stillness, a sound that reverberated with betrayal, drawing all eyes to Lady Eleanor as she crumbled into despair, an anguished figure against the backdrop of dark wood and flickering candlelight. "Why must we linger here," she sobbed, "in this mausoleum of grief and secrets?" Her hands trembled, palms pressed against her chest, as if trying to suppress a pain that threatened to engulf her. The air crackled with a tension that made even Hercule Poirot acutely aware of the churning emotions beneath the surface. "Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami," he mused, surveying the reactions of those who dared remain in the presence of truth, each one a resolve of conflicting motives. Charles Ashford stood rigid by the roaring fireplace, the flickering flames reflecting something darker within his eyes. "You invite our pity, Eleanor, yet do you not recognize the shadows that swirl about you?" His tone, laced with bitterness, echoed against the ornate wall, reverberating through the silence that lingered. "This death has unveiled our true selves, has it not?" The accusation hung between them, sharp as a knife, drawing the fragile threads of loyalty taut. Confronted by the intensity of the moment, Poirot's gaze shifted back to Dr. Thornfield, who remained rooted against the wall, a ghost of a man occupying mere space, yet pulsing with unconfessed desires. "Do you not see, Poirot?" Dr. Thornfield interjected, his voice low but filled with urgency. "We stand at the precipice of madness. This place taunts us, each echo a reminder of the past. Let us not speak of truths better left buried." The tremor in his voice betrayed his bravado, a signal that the storm outside was no match for the tempest brewing within their hearts. With a deliberate and calculated movement, Poirot pulled the abandoned letter from the table, its jagged edges whispering of urgency and intent. "I would remind you, mes amis, that the past is a canvas upon which we all have painted our fears. The truths you wish to deny weave themselves into your every word and glance. It is the key to what lies before us." He sensed their eyes lock on him, a hurricane of thoughts swirling within their minds. Each one was searching for comfort, yet it eluded them. As he began his inquiry, the flickering candlelight cast an ethereal glow about the room, the flames dancing to a sinister rhythm akin to their skittish souls. "Tell me, Charles," Poirot said slowly, observing the man's stare inch away. "What is it about the letter that beckons you to unravel its contents? Surely grief has brought you no solace." Charles shifted uncomfortably, the muscles in his jaw tightening, and in that moment Poirot sensed a crack in his facade, a flicker of guilt that could not be extinguished. Not to be outdone, Lady Eleanor's expression contorted into a mask of pain and fear. Perhaps it is you who is blinded by your own assumptions. The letter may hold, within it not our darkest truths, but the ramblings of a desperate mind. There it was, Poirot noted, the barely concealed panic, a window into her turmoil. She sought to deflect, to create a diversion, but the cracks in her words betrayed a deeper anguish. "Ah, mes amis," Poirot interjected, heartened by the currents swirling amongst them. "Each heart bears a burden unique, yet utterly intertwined with one another. The more we resist the truths, the more they shall find a way to surface." Studied each of their reactions like a skilled painter analyzing his palette. The light flickered again, casting shadows in fractured lace across their faces. In the midst of his observation, a realization dawned upon him. The doctor, once a pillar of calm, now stood unveiled, with a vulnerability he had barely concealed. "Dr. Thornfield," Poirot addressed him directly, catching the glimmer of desperation in the doctor's gaze. "You hold within you a secret that clutches at your very soul. Do you not? Speak it! What binds you so closely to this tragedy?" But before the doctor could respond, a sudden crash of thunder broke the tension, coinciding with the door being flung open, an iconoclast in the Theatre of Hearts. The figure that emerged was none other than Clémence, the maid, her face a mask of terror. "Forgive me for intruding, sirs and madam, but I overheard something I cannot hold any longer." The tension thickened, a web of anticipation weaving around them, as Poirot nodded for her to continue. "Yes?" he prompted, his voice almost a whisper, for every heart within that room strained to catch her next words. Clemence took a breath, the weight of her truth threatening to crush her under its severity. "It was Dr. Thornfield," she confessed, the words spilling forth like a floodgate unleashed, "who urged Master Richard to confront the estate's affairs on that fateful night. He had promised him knowledge, secrets of betrayal, and instead left him vulnerable. I heard so much, but I was too afraid." The room fell into a stifling silence, each face a mixture of shock and disbelief. Poirot's mind raced, weaving connections that were cloaked in shadows. But what was this utter betrayal? Despite all, the doctor still carried himself with an air of innocence that began to falter beneath the weight of the accusation. The tension was palpable, yet Poirot refrained from jumping to conclusions, digging deeper into the heart of revelation. "There lies a deeper truth here," he murmured. "A web spun not solely by you, Dr. Thornfield, but also in the chambers of jealousy that led you to conspire against Richard." A change flickered in Dr. Thornfield's already pale face as he stumbled back, the truth tightening like a noose. "It was not as you think. I never wished him harm. I sought only to protect what was stolen from me. My love. The shard of unconfessed love. Such treachery cloaked in the shadows of jealousy." Poirot interjected smoothly, his eyes sharp. "But you sought to extinguish a flame burning brighter than any darkness. And yet," he paused, directing his attention back to Lady Eleanor, "you too held secrets closer than the bonds of loyalty." The revelation dawned upon them, the ties that bound all at Ashford Hall becoming clearer. The final twist entwined every confession like threads of fate. The elaborate design of betrayal entangled not merely Richard's life, but entwined yours, Lady Eleanor, he concluded, a sorrowful weight in his voice, as the truth settled like the storm outside, leaving hearts exposed to the cold reality of loss. Silence fell over the room as the last embers of hope flickered out, a harrowing conclusion to their twisted fates. Poirot stepped back, absorbing the magnitude of what lay before him. "Remember this, my friends," he said soberly, his grand voice resonant against the crashing storm. "The heart, when consumed by envy, births a darkness far more lethal than any external threat." And as the storm raged, on outside, shadows enveloped Ashford Hall, forever changed by the troubling confessions that would haunt them, entangled in the melancholic remnants of fragile trust lost to time. Chapter 9. A Race Against Time. The jagged crack of thunder split the night like a violent scream, drowning the oppressive silence that clung to Ashford Hall. Candlelight flickered violently in the grand drawing-room, causing the shadows to dance ominously upon the walls, a mirage of tormented souls trapped within. Lady Eleanor's strained sobs were suddenly silenced, her eyes wide with a fear that transcended mere sorrow. She stood transfixed, her gaze fastened to the darkened corridor beyond. The pulse of dread quickened in the air, sharpening the senses of all present, and somewhere in the distance a clock began to toll, echoing a foreboding countdown that felt all too real. Hercule Poirot, keen observer of human intricacies, felt an unsettling sensation skitter through the room like a phantom. "Ah, but the storm. It holds secrets of its own, mes amis," he murmured, the elegance of his voice clashing against the chaos as he turned his attention to the trembling figures around him. Just moments before, they had been radiating an unyielding certainty, but now suspicion clawed at the edges of their composure. Graceful, yet burdensome, he stepped closer to the heart of the mystery, inviting revelation, but the time was slipping away. Outside, rain lashed against the windows with a ferocity that mirrored the turmoil within. Poirot's piercing gaze settled upon Charles Ashford, who leaned against the mantel, his face pale and glistening with beads of perspiration. "You wished for isolation, Charles, yet the storm brings us together, does it not?" Poirot pressed, desire to unwrap the malevolence veiling their truths evident in his well-crafted words. Charles glanced sideways at Dr. Thornfield, who deepened his frown, casting fleeting glances toward Lady Eleanor as if weighty revelations floated on the precipice of his lips. "Do you not find it curious, my friends?" Poirot continued, sensing tension coil around them. "With the clock's chime signaling the end of your resolve, do you not feel a shared weight? The past reaches out, entwining your futures in a most unwelcome embrace." His observations revealed not simply the truth of their interactions, but the tangled histories that colored their lives, each entwined with love, longing, and betrayal. The threads they severed for protection now lay before him, shimmering and heavy. "I demand answers," Lady Eleanor suddenly exclaimed, her voice breaking against the turbulence that raged within. "We speak of truths and lies, yet the only certainty is that Richard lies dead, and we are trapped here, haunted by this tempest." With those words, the bitterness of her grief crystallized, igniting a feverish urgency within Poirot's mind. The clock chimed ominously, reminding him that time was no longer on their side. In that moment, Clémence, the maid, burst into the room, her presence fraught with heavy sorrow. I could not hold my silence any longer," she stuttered, her face pale as the lightning illuminated the hall. "There is something more, something I overheard before." Her breath caught in her throat, and Poirot sensed the potential truth bleeding through her fear. "Something that transcends the shadows," Poirot prompted gently, hoping to coax forth the words wrapped within her hesitation. "They spoke of a hidden room, Clemence took a wavering breath, as if each syllable was a weight lifting from her chest. Lady Eleanor, Dr. Thornfield, they mentioned secrets buried, and in anger I heard that Richard must not discover what lies within that room. The air thickened with the weight of her revelations, and Poirot's intuition flared. Ah, the intricacies of deception, Poirot mused, as he quickly discarded the implications of the maid's revelation, recognizing a red herring just across its surface. Perhaps despair and jealousy wove a trap, but could it mask the truth in your own desires? He turned toward Dr. Thornfield, who shifted uneasily, fear creeping into his demeanor as well. It struck him as odd. A doctor accustomed to oft quieting the chaos of dying hearts, now stumbling through his own trepidations. "Tell me, Dr. Thornfield," Poirot questioned directly, his eyes searching. "You had much to lose, did you not? Shattered loyalties. Could your fury have driven you to mislead Richard?" "Mislead? Never." Dr. Thornfield's voice shook, coated with panic. "I aimed only to protect what was dear, what I had been denied." Yet beneath the surface, Poirot noted the quiver of his lips. This man's mind whirled around truths he dared not confess. As the night deepened, secrets clung to the walls of Ashford Hall. Poirot described each character with meticulous attention. He noted details, how Lady Eleanor's hands trembled ever so slightly when anger crossed her brow, and Charles's jaw twitched with barely contained resentment when discussions turned to betrayal. The shadows deepened around them, thickening as the storm conspired to keep their vulnerabilities hidden from view. "Ah, mon ami," Poirot interjected, momentarily catching everyone's attention. "Time, it runs dry, as do our words. Valuable secrets remain hidden, and yet tethered. The tension in this room, resplendent before a storm, feels like an unsolved riddle." He carefully considered how each moment entwined amongst them, desperate to decode the enigma lying at the heart of their collective grief. With each tick of the clock, Poirot felt a great urgency to confront this pervasive darkness. "We must find that hidden room, yes? Within its embrace lies a truth, waiting to be unveiled. Perhaps the very thing that binds us today in misery," he declared. The others nodded, uncertainty now electrifying them. They slipped into the dark corridors as the rain lashed the windows. Poirot's mind raced, dissecting their sentiments while deciphering the true motive tangled within their entangled narratives. At last, they stumbled upon a mahogany door that stood slightly ajar, a space steeped in shadows, a hidden room aglow with an eerie glimmer of moonlight. Poirot pushed it open, revealing a vortex of tightly bound letters and keepsakes wrapped in a dusty, shroud-like silence. His heart raced as he flicked through their contents, and in that moment he grasped the sheer depth of duplicity around him. As he extracted a letter, marked with a crimson wax seal, a sudden clash of thunder outside reverberated through the room, shaking them from their stupor. The words within the letter painted a treacherous picture, revealing a web of intrigue between Dr. Thornfield and Lady Eleanor, a dangerous liaison spawned from betrayal that spanned years. "Ah, but how the heart's desires can conjure illusions," Poirot declared, the weight of sorrow pressing heavily against each of them. Lady Eleanor, shattered by the realization, wavered on the brink of confession, her loyalty peeling away. Yet it was Charles Ashford who spoke through clenched teeth, his revelation cutting through their raw emotions like a blade. "Richard knew. He knew of your affair, Eleanor. He threatened to confront you both." The storm outside roared in response, the tension brimming over like a tempest unleashed. The collisions of hatred, love, and resentment swirled within their midst, a dance of shattered loyalty. Yet Poirot, through meticulous observation, caught the final guise of unconfessed love that dwelled in the shadows, not only between Dr. Thornfield and Eleanor, but also a deeper betrayal that would reveal itself. Twists of fate conspire, do they not? He mused, keenly aware of their fraying strings. Eleanor's past binds us all. But Dr. Thornfield, I see now, you too are ensnared by the fire of envy. It reveals how feelings, once pure, can twist upon themselves into ruin. The truth lay bare before them, and the heartbreaking revelation unveiled Charles's true role, the orchestrator whose desperate jealousy had fueled the events leading to Richard's demise. Stricken by the weight of betrayal, they emerged from the storm, their darkened hearts forever altered. As they descended into silence, Poirot closed the hidden door, sealing away the anguish and entanglements that marred their lives. "Remember this, mes amis," he stated grimly, his voice resonating against the talons of night. "Time is but a fleeting whisper, and in the heart's pursuit of desire, chaos shall illume the path of ruin." The clock chimed, its echoes unraveling into the soul-deepened darkness that enveloped Ashford Hall, a due reminder that some truths, once spoken, render the innocent irreparably scarred, while the storm continued its haunting symphony outside. Chapter 10. The alibi crumbles. A slow, tortuous creak of the grand staircase echoed through the echoing halls of Ashford Hall, sending jagged shards of dread slicing through the darkness. Candlelight wavered as the storm crashed against the windows, heralding an ominous night. Shadows stretched ominously, morphing into specters of doubt and fear, as though the very walls whispered secrets best left buried. It was in this foreboding atmosphere that Hercule Poirot found himself, a master of observation amidst chaos, drawn deeper into the abyss of human frailty and duplicity. A sudden crash of thunder reverberated through the mansion, signaling a new urgency as Poirot's sharp gaze fell upon the faces of his companions. Charles Ashford, the embittered brother, cautioning against further inquiry. Lady Eleanor, whose porcelain visage betrayed a storm of emotions. And Dr. Gregory Thornfield, whose demeanor now pulsed with hidden anxieties. In the aftermath of the recent revelations surrounding Richard's death, the ambient tension formed a fabric woven from despair and deception. Poirot could already sense how the threads would fray, revealing the truth hanging uncomfortably close to the surface. "Ah, but the human heart. It hides many things, mon ami," Poirot murmured to himself as he dissected their reactions, perceiving the minute tremors of their hands and the way their eyes flickered nervously. These were not merely the tokens of grief. They concealed alibis that danced on the tip of uncertainty, each testimony shrouded in the mists of deception. As he addressed the gathered souls, Poirot posed a single, piercing question that cut through the dim atmosphere. "Who amongst you shall provide a proper account of their whereabouts on the storm-laden night of Richard's murder?" Their silence was thick, each breath laced with the fear of exposure. A palpable untruth swirled around them, wrapping tighter with every passing moment. Charles Ashford was the first to break the haunting quiet. "I was in my study, alone, with my thoughts," he offered too quickly, his voice trembling with the weight of suppressed ire. The accusation of inferiority lingered in the space between his confession and Poirot's keen scrutiny. To deflect his brother's increasing shadow, injured pride turned to fervent self-preservation. Poirot's gaze shifted toward Lady Eleanor. "And you, ma chère, where did the winds of fate take you when Richard's life was so abruptly extinguished?" Beneath her composed facade, Poirot detected the telltale quiver of trepidation. Her lips parted, hesitating, showcasing a moment of vulnerability. I was with Dr. Thornfield, attending to a personal matter regarding my health," she stammered, yet the glint of conviction in her eyes lacked the steadiness of truth. But Poirot would not be trapped within the confines of their convoluted fabrications. "Forgive me, but you cannot expect me to accept the unbroken threads of your story," he stated sharply, eyes narrowing. "For backgrounds upon backgrounds lie before me, woven intricately but fraught with misdirection. Tell me, Dr. Thornfield, is there an aspect of your evening that unravels your explanation?" Dr. Thornfield shifted uncomfortably, the weight of expectation heavy upon his shoulders. "I was merely confirming my concern for Eleanor," he replied defensively. "Elle était dans un état fragile, and I had taken to checking on her as a doctor should." Yet his words twisted into a knot of evasiveness, the countenance of a man longing to conceal darker thoughts. As the storm howled ferociously beyond the stone walls, Poirot began to connect the disparate threads of their stories, keen to reveal the tapestry of deceit. Each suspect held a piece of the macabre puzzle, yet the picture was still marred by somber distortions. Perhaps it was not only jealousy that fueled their actions, but a conflation of malicious ambition entwined with love. And therein lingered the seeds of betrayal, waiting patiently in the shadows, seeking fertile ground to manifest their poisonous blooms. But I must dig deeper into the crevices of your minds," Poirot announced resolutely, "for hidden truths threaten to bleed through the fabric of lies." He surveyed the room, glancing over specific remnants of their pasts, the letters still nestled in the concealed room, clinching hold of their complicated alliances. The clock ticked ominously, a steady reminder that time would not yield to fanciful deceptions. In an act of calculated subterfuge, Poirot approached the hearth, where shadows hid the embers of unspoken fury. "Charles, might I inquire the specifics of your alibi again? You were alone, yes? Surely the pages of solitude do not provide anchors unwittingly shrouded in contempt." An unsettling silence fell between them. A look of pure disbelief clouded Charles' features. He stood taut, moments resembling contained explosions, ready to unleash once he could no longer bear the pressures of Poirot's scrutiny. "Do not twist my words, Poirot," Charles barked, voice quaking with incensed defiance. "You presume too much. The only thing crumbling here is our very sanity." "Sanity, my friend, is often the first casualty of perilous secrets," Poirot replied, unperturbed. "Would it not be prudent to reconsider your position the night of the crime?" His eyes locked onto Charles's as he advanced closer, the tension palpable enough to slice. But it was Lady Eleanor's sudden outburst that sliced through the air, her calm veneer shattering under the pressure. "And why should we trust you, Poirot? You peddle in stray hints and meaningless conjectures. You bring division when Richard lies cold." Anguish twisted through her voice, revealing layers of concealed resentment and tangled loyalties woven into the fabric of her existence. The intensity of the moment shifted dramatically as Poirot pieced the throbbing rhythm of truths told and untold. "Yet your words reveal just as much as they conceal," he replied coolly. "Your fears, your grief, they betray the weight you carry. Each of you harbors burdens, entwined like a net, seeking to entrap your grasp of reality. A flicker of understanding ignited in the eyes of his companions, apprehension knitting tighter with every utterance. In the throes of his investigation, Poirot uncovered a crucial red herring, a piece of evidence that swept away the very foundation upon which they stood. A forgotten letter unearthed from an obscure corner of the room, its contents implicating each party further in their collective failure to protect Richard from the deep-seated tensions within. Each character's past, riddled with indiscretions and intertwined secrets, began to congeal around shared despair. As they moved about the hall, like unmoored vessels under an endless storm, Poirot's mind coiled around a final, shocking twist. The interwoven strands of concealed love and revenge revealed the puppeteer of their fates. Charles, as the harbinger of jealousy, it seems, you wielded this tempest as a weapon, Poirot asserted, his calm voice slicing through the air like a scalpel. Yet deep down, it seems your heart is ensnared by yet another lover's quarrel, one that swords far deeper. The truth blossomed forth, dragging each character headlong into their rightful place. For while we speak of betrayal, it was the desire to shield that love intertwined each grain of deception. Pyramid schemes of affection lay at your feet. Eleanor holds no simple motive, nor you. Each of you was linked in this fatal entanglement against Richard. The chamber faded into a harrowing silence, a void consuming them as the truth shifted like embers under ash. Poirot stepped closer, his brow furrowing, his stoicism giving way to a somber resolve. In pain, there is clarity, and in clarity, my friends, lies the true essence of being, revealing who amongst you was the architect of this betrayal, and how deeply you were all bound. As he closed the fragmented narrative, the clock chimed within the haze of rain and shadow, its echo resonating with the remnants of lives that would forever bear witness to pain. The room, the very heart of Ashford Hall, stood irrevocably bruised under the weight of remorseless truth. C'est la vie, Poirot sighed, his elegant voice finally breaking the ghostly hush, leaving a lingering echo that would forever brand those entwined in this macabre mystery. Time and truths often walk hand in hand. What binds us together can also sever our souls. As we journey through the labyrinth of the heart, may we heed the echoes left behind. Chapter 11. The Final Reveal. A blood-curdling shriek echoed through the dimly lit hall of Ashford Hall, piercing the thunderous claps of the storm raging outside. Lady Eleanor stood frozen, her hand trembling against her throat, her eyes wide with horror as she clutched the letter found among Richard's last belongings. "This can't be happening," she wailed, collapsing onto the velvet chair, a canvas of despair painted across her porcelain face. In that moment, a cacophony of suppressed emotions unraveled, the weight of their troubled hearts flooding the space with palpable dread. Hercule Poirot, poised and unyielding amid the emotional tempest, observed the chaos unraveling before him with the sharp precision of a masterful craftsman, piecing together a shattered narrative. "Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami," he murmured to himself, his mind racing to distinguish the tangled threads of truth from the fabrications ensnaring the inhabitants of the hall. Lady Eleanor's reaction bore witness to the mirror of guilt reflecting across the other faces. Charles Ashford, with his brooding gaze cast toward the stormy skies, and Dr. Gregory Thornfield, who shifted uncomfortably, his customary confidence cracked and peeling, like the paint on the weathered walls. In the wake of Richard's tragic end, emotions ran high, and Poirot could feel the shocking currents swirling between the trio. Each suspect harbored a distinct motive, hidden like poisonous thorns, beneath the roses they portrayed. Charles, consumed by envy and resentment for his brother's success, had built walls of contempt around him. Lady Eleanor, caught in the grip of unrequited love, stifled her longing beneath a veneer of respectability, betraying her tumultuous heart. Dr. Thornfield, pained by moral dilemmas and the agony of his unconfessed feelings, wore the mask of a loyal adherent, but carried within him a storm raging far deadlier. As the thunder roared and the wind howled, Poirot drew closer to the flickering candlelight, dancing in the corners of the room, illuminating the faces of those ensnared in their webs of deceit. "Tell me, friends," he began, his voice a calm anchor amidst the chaos, "who among you holds the key to the truth of that fateful night?" Silence gripped the chamber, thick and unbearable. "Charles, you were at the center of this affair, were you not? A mere whisper escapes you in defense of your whereabouts." "Oh, spare me your theatrics." "Poirot," Charles spat back, a tremor in his voice that spoke of suppressed fury. He clenched his fists, the tendons standing stark against his pale skin. "I am the one haunted here, not you. I was alone, in my study, in the face of Richard's contempt. But nothing I say will convince you." Poirot leaned forward, his discerning gaze piercing through the outer layer of Charles's bravado. "Your anger, dear Charles, speaks volumes," he observed, noting the bead of sweat trickling down the side of the man's temple. "But what lies beneath? Hatred comes wrapped in many trappings, does it not? And are we truly to believe that no memory, no feeling, emerged from those unbroken moments?" In juxtaposition to Charles's fury, Lady Eleanor's demeanor morphed under the pressure of the moment, her indignation yielding to sorrow. "You have known me long enough, Poirot, to believe that I would never conspire against Richard. My heart lies heavy with grief, not complacency to sin." She spoke the words with tragic conviction, yet Poirot sensed the tremor in her heart echoed with layers of suppressed longing. How convenient it is to weave a tale of mourning while harboring desires born in darkness, Poirot remarked coolly. He turned his attention to Dr. Thornfield. "And you, mon ami, where do your loyalties truly lie? You came to Eleanor's aid as a doctor, yes, yet what if that role was a facade? What were your true reasons for being with her that night?" "I offer only help," Thornfield asserted, though even he seemed unconvinced of his own words as his eyes darted between the two others. The air was thick with hesitation. Poirot stood back momentarily, a maestro surveying an orchestration of deceitful chords. "Ah, we find ourselves entwined, do we not? A storm, both outside and within." He paused, lifting the letter Eleanor had clutched moments prior, its edges frayed, its ink smudged. "But it is here we discover a piece of truth hidden within these terrible words. This letter, it bears the signature of despair and reveals the complexity of your relationships, a web intricately woven, ensnaring Richard after all." The diverse revelations unfolded around them. As the storm continued its fervent symphony outside, the faces of those gathered contorted with anxiety, regret, and a flicker of anxiety as the intricate connections between them knitted together in Poirot's mind like dark, threaded tapestry. Yet, is it not true that there is a lingering spectre that haunts us, a presence among the living Who stirs the cauldron of chaos, even now? At that moment, an unexpected figure emerged from the shadows. The housemaid, Clara, her eyes filled with determination. "I saw you, Dr. Thornfield, entering Richard's study on the night he died," she declared, her voice steady as she confronted the swirling entanglements. "You claimed to have been with Lady Eleanor all evening, but you had no idea I was by the window." The room froze in silence, eyes darting in disbelief. Poirot's expression softened into a delightful curiosity. "A most fortuitous revelation," he declared. "But let us not leap to implicate without due consideration. I sense the weight of further revelations yet untold." As anticipation hung heavy, Poirot began to unravel a more profound truth. The red herring lies buried in a betrayal of love. "Lady Eleanor, did you not express your affection for Richard on the eve before his demise?" Her face paled at the question, revealing the depth of her internal conflict. In the murky glimmer of the candlelight, Poirot pieced together the events, Charles's jealousy and resentment igniting a fuse against his brother, all masked beneath the guise of love. A false alibi, defined by a tragic devotion, wrecked upon the altar of desire. But there lay another twist, a revelation brought forth with the ghostly echo of his final riddle. "You, Eleanor, sought refuge in the affections of Thornfield, yet it was your incandescent fury toward Charles that provided the final push that night, the culmination of grief and pent-up love transforming into a seething undercurrent of tragic consequence." Their gazes locked, the tension between betrayal and love slamming together in an emotional crescendo. Oh, call it fate, call it love. A tangled mess that left Richard entombed under the weight of betrayal, born from bonds once cherished. Poirot's voice rose, resonating deeply with the weight of revelation. As he drew the strands together into a grim tapestry, Poirot's concluding words echoed ominously through the chamber, a haunting reminder reverberating as the storm raged outside. "C'est la vie," he sighed, his tone soaked in a blend of sorrow and certainty. "What we create, my friends, has the potential to unravel the very essence of our existence, and thus, in the darkness, we find that the heart's whispers, oft muffled, carry greater horrors than first perceived." Light flickered in the shadows as the storm subsided momentarily, casting an eerie calm over Ashford Hall, the ashes of betrayal lingering in the air like the remains of a once thriving blaze. Chapter 12. The Truth's Price. A single candle flickered in the damp air of Ashford Hall, casting ghostly shadows against the walls that shuddered with each clap of thunder outside. It had been a tempestuous night, both within and without. The storm outside raged in unison, with the turmoil settled, like lead, in the hearts of those within. Poirot stood poised, a deft blend of elegance and alertness, as a body lay motionless on the polished marble floor, the crimson pooling around it, painting a morbid portrait of betrayal and despair. Inspector Mills, defined by his gruff exterior but guided by a moral compass that often went astray, had found them engulfed in a delicate web of suspicion, each thread leading deeper into the tumult of the human condition. "Eleanor," Poirot began, his voice as smooth as silk, yet firm with authority, "you must direct your thoughts to the moments preceding this tragedy. What lies beneath your recollections?" Lady Eleanor, haunted and pale, could only tremble as her eyes flickered toward the figure lying still. Her heart beat wildly against her chest, each pulse echoing the pain of her unconfessed feelings toward Richard, a love complicated by layers of deceit. I do not know, Poirot. I only came to check on him, she stammered, her voice quaking with the remnants of unspent grief and undeniable guilt, a cruel reminder of secrets buried deep. Poirot's brow furrowed as he surveyed the scene. Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami, he murmured, almost to himself, keenly aware of the treachery woven within their tangled affections. Beside Eleanor stood Charles Ashford, Richard's brother, his visage locked in an unsettling mask of sorrow and rage. "This is madness," he roared, eyes flashing. "How can you still speak of hearts and motives when my brother lies dead? You presume to know my pain, Poirot, but you are blind to the tempest of emotions within." Yet in his fury, a flicker of something darker emerged, a whispered confrontation beneath the sorrow. Then there was Dr. Gregory Thornfield, previously a reliable friend who now stood shrouded in pervasive shadows, his unwavering calm before shattered nerves. "Eleanor, you must control your emotions," he implored with a voice that trembled at the edges. But Poirot noted the way Thornfield's hands fidgeted, the beads of moisture gathering on his brow. A careful architect of calm now seems unnerved by the play of light across the grim tableau. "You seek to calm the storm, yet I see the storm hidden behind your facade. What emotional currents threaten to overtake you?" Poirot asked, his piercing insight challenging the man's composure. The hour had come for revelations and examinations as Poirot turned his meticulous gaze toward the items scattered therein. Scattered papers, a broken inkpot, a shattered glass, each disarray an indication of the chaos birthed out of conflict. The clock ticked remorselessly, counting down the moments until the truth would emerge. One could almost hear its heartbeat in the silence that fell, a sinister reminder of lives forever altered in one fateful decision. With astute precision, Poirot began his investigations. He gathered the three suspects, each tarnished by shadows of suspecting glances, a creeping veil of distrust unfurling above their heads. "Tell me, Charles," he inquired smoothly, coolly observing the man's reaction, "where were you on that fateful eve? Is it not odd that you were absent during Richard's last moments?" The question hung heavy in the air, a deliberate stone cast into the pond of their lives, creating ripples far beyond the surface. "I was in my study, Poirot," Charles retorted, his words laced with a bitter edge, "seeking solitude from his cruel jests, which you seem to have overlooked. I would not have been caught dead in the rooms that beheld his incessant mockery." His vehement denial resonated, but the anger hit harder than mere words. Poirot caught the way. Charles's jaw clenched, revealing a vulnerability wrapped in frustration. "Perhaps," Poirot continued gently, pivoting toward Eleanor, "you were indeed the one caught in a web not of your own making. But emotions, desire, perhaps clouded your judgment. Did you not wish to confront Richard that very night?" Tears welled in Eleanor's eyes, brimming with the tumult of unvoiced thoughts as Poirot's probing question pricked her defenses. "Of course I wished to see him, but not to harm him," she cried, her voice rising as raw emotions erupted anew. The candle flickered, as if responding to the chaos, casting grotesque shadows that writhed against the ancient walls. Poirot, however, noted something peculiar that slipped through her words, a hesitation, a guarded truth that suggested there lay more behind her sorrow. As the investigation deepened, Poirot meticulously pieced together statements, chronicling each flaw and contradiction. The thunder rumbled outside, echoing the mounting trepidation. Within Ashford Hall, as each character revealed more than intended, betrayals layered beneath heartbreaking confessions. A misplaced letter, one with a loving tone, led Poirot to believe ownership belonged not solely to Eleanor, as she initially claimed, but was shared across a spectrum of intertwined souls. Yet, as the final act approached, the air thickened and swirled ominously around them. Events took an unexpected turn. Clara, the astute housemaid, emerged once more from the shadows, her timid voice breaking the tension. "I overheard words whispered in the hallway before the night turned vile," she stuttered, the truth flooding her resolve. It was Dr. Thornfield who confessed to Eleanor about loving her, mere moments before Richard met his end. The revelation struck Poirot like a bolt from the blue, unraveling a thread of complex emotions. A dangerous entanglement had formed, one fueled by yearning and hidden rivalry. Dr. Thornfield, suddenly cornered, stumbled over his own words. I did not mean—" The flustered confession rang hollow, revealing a deeper discord beneath his supposed alliances. As the storm reached a cacophonous crescendo, Poirot steadied himself, drawing the final strands together. "Therein lies the truth," he proclaimed, his voice intertwining with the echo of thunder. "The love of two men and one woman transformed into a deadly game, intertwined by deception, masquerading motives, and a murderous consequence." But the curtain had yet to fall. In the fragile silence, a moment where time hung suspended over the precipice, Poirot delivered the ultimate blow. For Richard's end was not just wrought from misplaced love, but rather in the haunting whispers of jealousy. "Eleanor, your silence urged your desires forward, while Gregory let his passions teach him malice." The truth's price was indeed steep. Emotions morphed into a torrent of agony and regret. As the chamber fell into a haunting stillness, Poirot simply sighed, his tone heavy with sorrow and resolve. Life, my friends, indeed dances on the precipice between love and betrayal, and in that delicate balance, we find the heartbeat of our very beings. The candle extinguished, a final reminder that within the embrace of darkness, the echoes of their betrayals would forever remain enshrined in the haunting halls of Ashford.